The Uncontrollability of the World was written by the German philosopher Hartmut Rosa. The book examines how the social and political organization of our modern societies have made being and things permanently and unlimitedly available, and how such a condition led to crisis, chaos, and hostility. Society is stable when three dimensions are reached: economic growth, technological acceleration, and cultural innovation. These dimensions establish our institutions and become a threat if we don't get better, faster, more creative, and more efficient. The risk of losing jobs and closing businesses is always present. The decrease of tax revenue while spending goes up, the fiscal crisis, the fragility of health system, our level of pensions, or our cultural institutions are areas that keep getting worse. The increase of political flexibility, so much so that the political system also seems in the end to be delegitimized. Making the world controllable means making it visible, calculable, and controllable through the spread of knowledge and advanced technologies. It also means making the world reachable by creating rockets, satellites, transportations. It is also about provision, making the world controllable through armies, weapons, technologies, colonialism. It also means making it usable and transform it into an instrument of our ends. In a world like that, life becomes meaningless. It becomes an iron cage in which economic and bureaucratic reasons drag, so to speak, in a blind and vain way, the processes of growth until humans become a nothingness that imagine itself, having climbed a level of humanity never reached before. Rosa explains that our inability to come into resonance with things is the reason behind our regressive relationship with nature. This lack of resonance is what led to technological progress. So what does it mean to resonate with things? Resonance describes a mode of relationship defined by four characteristics. The first one is the moment of contact or affection. This mode of resonance differs from the state of alienation by a sort of two-sided movement between the subject and the word. On the one hand, the subject is affected by the word, that is to say, touched or moved in such a way that he or she develops an intrinsic interest in the fragment of the word facing him or her and feels in some way in the position of recipient. On the other hand, we can speak of resonance only in the case and at the moment when a proper and active response results from this contact. This is the second characteristic which Rosa calls the moment of personal effectiveness or response. To look someone in the eye and see a response in their gaze means to resonate with them. The third characteristic is the moment of assimilation or transformation. Resonance experiences transform us, and it is precisely in this sort of experiences that vitality lies. If we no longer let ourselves be challenged or transformed by anything, or if we are no longer able to respond effectively to the many voices around us, we are internally dead, petrified, in short, unable to resonate. The fourth characteristic is the moment of uncontrollability. Resonance is constitutively uncontrollable, and our relationship with it is of the same order as with falling asleep. The more intensely we want it, the less we manage to fall asleep. Conversely, uncontrollability also means that the eruption of resonance can never be excluded. It can also occur in radically alienated or adverse circumstances, even if this is of course unlikely. Therefore, one of the characteristics of resonance is that it cannot be obtained or prevented with certainty. In chapter 5 of this book, Rosa reviews 5 theses on the controllability of things and the uncontrollability of experience. The first thesis argues that the constitutive uncontrollability of resonance and the principled controllability of things do not yet form a contradiction in themselves. In fact, there must always be an element of uncontrollability to maintain resonance in our relationships with things and people. For example, if my cat always behaves the same way as a robot, it becomes a dead being. The fact that cats change behavior, bites or scratches for example, is a resonance in our relationship. The second thesis is about things that we have completely, that is, in all 4 dimensions, lose their quality of resonance. Therefore, resonance implies semi-controllability. For example, if people consider a book, say the Bible or Capital by Marx, as another resonant, it is only because they have the feeling of not having yet fully understood it. Or to put it better, it is because reading it keeps them reacting and sometimes making them indignant. The third thesis shows that resonance requires an uncontrollability that speaks. It is more than mere contingency. When people have a resonance experience with the first snowfall, with a mountain, a book, or a record, it means that they encounter something or something happens to them that concerns them, that has meaning for them. In fact, we already use in everyday language to express this feeling in its most banal form. Formulations like, this book or this piece of music speaks to me. It means that it causes me a feeling. The fourth thesis explains that the attitude that aims to fix, to dominate, to make controllable a fragment of the word is incompatible with an orientation towards resonance. It destroys the experience of resonance by suspending its internal dynamics. The notion of semi-controllability seems once again to translate precisely what makes resonance possible. Musicians experience it when they improvise together. Journalists, authors, and scientists when they write text, and just as the runners of a marathon during a competition. Here Rosa underlines the difference between reachable and controllable. The reachability of the subject means that he or she must be able to be touched, challenged, so that resonance can occur. But reachability does not necessarily mean pure contingency. We can of course create the conditions and the situations to allow ourselves to be touched. A museum, for example, is a place where, as a rule, we do not pursue an instrumental end, and where we usually want to meet things in a relationship that is not based on the increase and the provision, but on unexpected and unpredictable resonances. Modernity is forced to transpose reachability into controllability during the process of self-optimization. The fifth and last thesis highlights that resonance needs an attainable word, not an available or limitless word. The confusion between reachability and controllability is at the root of the mutism that grips the word in modernity. And controllability does not simply mean contingency. Certain concepts of grace or donation suggest that the encounter certainly cannot be deserved, demanded, or obtained by force, but based on attainability, to which the subject receiving the grace or the donation can completely contribute insofar as he or she must be ready to welcome them. In our world, we haven't yet reached a complete controllability. There are certain areas where the uncontrollability remains present. Profession and career after high school, death, except in the case of assisted suicide. The question is not to hide legally, administratively, and politically the fact that they are uncontrollabilities, but rather to find how to deal with them. The thesis of Rosa is that the fundamental structure of human desire is a desire for relationship. We want to achieve or make attainable something that is not at our disposal. A word that we would have made completely controllable would not only be unattractive, it would also be without resonance. There would be nothing left to desire. Desire would no longer find an object. In fact, the attempt to make the word controllable seems to lead purely and simply to its opposite, an uncontrollability without limits. The word disposer program ultimately threatens to lead to a radical uncontrollability, different and more severe than the original uncontrollability, because we cannot experience self-efficacy in it, and because we cannot enter into any relationship of response or any relationship of assimilation with it.